Hi there. I'm here with Jumana Al Hashal from Zillow. She is the senior product mobile product leader over at Zillow. Hi, Jay.
Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to have you here and glad to let some of our attendees get to meet you.
Absolutely.
So I guess to kick off first, you're also known in the Twitter sphere, and you have a consulting thing called Objective J. Where did that come from?
No, it's not actually like an official thing per se, but I do a ton of consulting on the side for startups and non-startups, basically anybody who's interested in taking their mobile product or product to the next level. Basically, mostly focusing on helping people figure out their MVP and a kind of to-market strategy for early products, or if your product needs sort of a refresher. I came from years of consulting. Prior to Zillow, I was in consulting for a few years, and even straight out of college, I had a startup that also we did sort of consulting, building lead management systems for various big names. So kind of where I spent most of my career is consulting and helping people figure out what to do with their products.
Oh, awesome. And so before Zillow, I know you were at allrecipes.com and also Ubermind. Can you tell me a little about how your career progressed to where you're at now?
Absolutely. Actually, Our Recipes was a client of Ubermind. Let's see, I joined Ubermind, when was that? About 2006. So it was a very small company, a few people. We were working from home. Then we were in a two-bedroom apartment in a residential neighborhood here called Queen Anne. And basically, I was working on a contract for Apple via Ubermind. When the iPhone was first announced, and I remember going to WWDC that year, and the excitement that I felt as a product creator, that here within my lifetime there was this thing, there was a change, a fundamental change to the paradigm of personal computing, and I couldn't really wait to be part of it. The SDK came out in, I think, the spring of 2008. I think it was around March. For developing native applications. And my first app on the market was for my client or recipes. It was the dinner spinner. And was when we got it just in time for the Christmas season of that same year. So I guess I jumped on the mobile bandwagon really early on. It was really truly exciting time working as a consultant during that time that I got to define a lot of first consumer experiences for a number of well-loved brands, and that was really a catalyst for our company, for Ubermind. Our consulting company went from handful of employees, as I said, in a two-bedroom apartment, into a 150 employee company in a swanky office across from Google and Adobe in Fremont, Seattle, and then later got acquired by Deloitte Digital. I think designing for mobile pushed us to be better in a way, right? Like better designers working against space constraints, better engineers working against hardware and memory constraints. Um, and so that's, I guess, how I got into mobile and sort of how I got in with all recipes and then later Target and Ubermind. And it's kind of that some of those experiences is what got Zillow interested in my background and reached out to me when they wanted to take their mobile product to the next level.
Excellent. And so, since joining Zillow, you've helped roll out an entire suite of applications. I know I saw awards from Apple and the Webbies and the Appies. And I'm familiar with Zillow, but can you kind of walk us through the typical Zillow customer experience across all these touch points and things?
Um, th Through this specific experience, okay, we can do that, but let's go back to the earlier part of the question, basically, about rolling out experiences across
Yeah.
sort of across platforms, and how do you do that, and um, how do you create apps that facilitate kind of delightful experience? You mentioned some of the awards that we won, and there's a saying that I would say is attributed to Steve Jobs initially, that design is how it works. And so if design is how it works, um, to me, delight is how well it works, if you will.
Mhm.
And not just how it works, but how it plays, how it converses with me as a user. And content is really a big part of taking an experience to a delight level. So for me, delight is in a product comes from a sense that the experience is giving way to my needs as a user. My needs to be educated, to be informed, to be entertained, to be task-oriented. There's this sense of being altruistically cared for by the brand, if you will. For Zillow specifically, they offer an extremely valuable and personalized service. And so I think the content and the data that they provide really, if you have the right sort of product people in place, if you have the right team in place, it's a strong foundation to build amazing experiences on top of. So I was kind of, lucky because the brand is so strong and the content is so valuable that it's easy to build and to imagine experiences that are going to delight users across experiences with that foundation. So I would say if we want to talk about the sort of what's the typical consumer experience, the consumer experience is cross-platform and is cross-channel, and it's focused on the consumer. The consumer is sort of the North Star for Zillow. It's a very important cultural tenet there, and basically allowing the user to take the data and access the data with them, having the service as personalized as possible and as seamless as possible across platforms and across channel is kind of the core driving principle.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think you touched on a few really great and important themes there. One being that, Zillow already has adopted this customer-centric mentality, and you mentioned that you have a great team to support rolling out products that really facilitate a well-integrated experience. What do you think are some of the challenges that companies are facing that aren't quite thinking mobile first?
Um, I'm on a roll with the sayings today.
I love them.
You know how they say that the very definition of madness is keeping doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And in a way, I feel that's how it is with when you're trying to move over to mobile. You cannot kind of continue doing the same processes, the same way of thinking, the same way of thinking about products, thinking about customers. The same way of doing business is not going to result in a mobile-first company if you're not a mobile-first company right now. So really the biggest challenge is developing these habits, these reflexes, this awareness of your brand as permeating uh, channels and platforms, as being really a transmedia product. And how do you deal with that? How do you think of that first? So it's all about building sort of new habits throughout your org, and potentially like looking at what it is, like is your team structure the correct team structure? Are the processes you have in place the right processes? Is the way you're thinking about product the correct way? Is your content available across platforms and channels? So it's a practice of developing the right habits and the right reflexes and forcing yourself to do everything new sort of on mobile first.
Definitely. It's definitely a deep cultural shift even in organizations typically, it seems.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. It's all about like, do you have the right culture, and that is a variety of things culture-wise. One is, do you have a culture of empowerment? Are you pushing creativity to the lowest and responsibility for this mobile first to the individual contributors, to your designers, to your developers? Is there a good understanding of the technology? Even on the business side and on the people who are making the decisions, do they understand what's available technology-wise, and what are the trade-offs that we're making there? And so a strong culture of knowledge sharing and education and cross-pollination between design, engineering, and business, because these units cannot remain so divorced from each other. You need like a deep understanding of all these areas if you're going to be the decision maker on a product.
Sure. And kind of going off of that, going along with empowerment and knowledge and just driving forward change, what sorts of technologies or techniques are really piquing your interest right now in designing mobile experiences?
Um, I don't know about designing mobile experiences per se, but kind of designing sort of the next generation, I feel, of consumer experiences. Sensors really is what what gets me excited lately. The possibilities for connected devices, smart homes, smart work, smart personal equipment, basically the world of the Internet of Things, where it's just a huge interest to me lately. I feel like if mobile was the first paradigm shift, this is the next paradigm shift that we're talking about in personal computing. So it's more of a move almost away from the artificial hoops that we have created for ourselves in terms of user experiences. You know, we created keyboards and mice and carpal tunnel for ourselves and bad posture and all of these things. And I feel like we're moving more and more towards a more natural way of interacting with technology, where technology almost kind of blends into the background. So you still have a more enhanced experience of presence within your environment, but it's less intermediated with your devices, with your keyboards, with traditional modes of input. So kind of this move towards more natural way of interaction is what what I spent a lot of time thinking about lately, or investigating.
Yeah. And so you are senior mobile product manager, but you're also, I mean, clearly you definitely have more of a strategic perspective on things. And then you also have this background in coding and developing, which to me I've heard called like a unicorn. Do you think that we're seeing more of that
Um,
from other people and the industry as well, at a whole?
I hear that unicorn thing a little too often, but it's I mean, certainly you can build things without sort of having the um, kind of an extensive background in all three. I do acknowledge that I have kind of a unique background that combines strategy, engineering, and design, but it it's kind of came out of a personal need, right? Like I have more of an entrepreneurial bent to the work I do, um, and I find it really hard to work in a vacuum. I don't think you can really be an innovative product creator or product person without really understanding the strength. You don't have to be able to, I guess, build the bridge, but it'll sure as hell be helpful if you understand what tensile strength of wire is. So just understanding the kind of the building blocks that you have available, understanding the technology and the underlying principles, I think are essential for any person who wants to be a product manager or wants to, in general, be a product person or product creator. Um, you don't have to be a coder, as I said, but it's really valuable to understand the capabilities of the technology that are available. And as I said before, the trade-offs you're making and the choices that are available. And when something new comes online, um, it's very useful to be able to download the new SDK and like play with it yourself. It's empowering to be able to do that. So I definitely encourage anybody who's interested in coding to at least take a course. Especially women. We need a lot more women in technology. And there are resources out there for people. You know, all of this stuff. There's a ton of available and free resources readily available for people to kind of brush up on their more technology side. And definitely
Hmm.
encourage them to do that.
Definitely. I myself gave the Code Academy thing a shot a while back.
There you go.
Didn't quite work out as well as I hoped, but so
You don't have to become a coder, but even if you got a little bit better understanding of how things work, I think it was worth it.
it is helpful, and it sounds like it was helpful to you in your career to kind of just have those different perspectives weighing on what decisions you're making and thinking strategically. Where else do you find inspiration?
That's an interesting question. Um, and I'm gonna give a not very straightforward answer to it, I think. But basically, I don't think you can rely on inspiration. People always ask you like what inspires you, and anything can inspire you, but you cannot be inspired every single day of your life, and not certainly not every single day um, of your career. So what you have to rely on, what is there for you day in and day out, is habit. So if you can develop those habits, those reflexes, if you can patiently practice day to day instead of instead of just looking at things, actually seeing them for what they are, instead of just understanding, truly comprehending, instead of just hearing things, actually listening to them. If you can develop this analytical approach, in the way you look at everything, from the design of the coffee mug that you're using to the stop sign that doesn't make any sense on down the street. These things eventually become ingrained and become intuition, so they seem more magical and more inspirational and whatnot. So if you kind of practice and build those habits, they'll serve you a lot better than any inspiration, and then you can find inspiration everywhere.
Absolutely. I don't think that was a roundabout answer at all. I think that definitely makes sense. And not to get too cheesy, but I think that Portland is a very inspirational city. I think there's a lot to be had. What are you looking forward to about coming out here in the fall?
I think you said it. Portland itself, the Design Week, which it seems like the Delight 2014 is around the Design Week. One sounds pretty amazing, but I do love Portland as a city. It is very inspirational. So there's a lot of nooks and crannies and things happening, and art and culture, and it's a city that has come truly into its own, and I think it'd be fun to just be around and kick back and meet other peers in the area.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited to have you out, and it was so great to chat with you and hear some of your perspective. And I look forward to seeing you in a few months.
Thank you so much, and I look forward, to being in Portland, meeting in person. It'd be great.
Great. Well, thanks, Jay. Talk to you soon.
Bye bye. Talk to you.
Bye.
Bye.